got a few of everyone coming on now. Let me unmute everyone. I don't know why. I'm going to convert everyone to panelists as well. We've got the brothers on.
What's up, Steph? What's good, Stephanos?
Here we are. Oh shit! Now I'm getting emotional already. I can't.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I didn't know Bam. You didn't tell me Bam was gonna be here.
There's some surprises.
You should have assumed, man. I got this melanated skin. You should have assumed I was gonna be here.
You've been on every call this week, haven't you?
Everyone.
It's so good. That's Ez. Ez. That we can't hear you too well, Ez. You gotta change that, bro. You gotta change that. Hold on a sec. Let's
You know, they were a good price on Amazon, but in reality, it's not. It's not. You guys sound like humans again. This is much better. Aloha, fellas.
Aloha.
How's it going, brothers?
Aloha.
Ah, there he is.
What's up, Kaz?
Walton.
Good to see you, bro.
Dude, radiant, shining faces. I love it. I'm feeling it.
I want to introduce everyone. So for some of you that don't know each other, and we've got another dear friend. Some of you may know him, Samson. He lives in SD. He lives in San Diego. He'll be on. He's on now. There he is. There he is. Awesome. So, before, obviously we're recording, but before we get started, brothers, and I'll do this again. I want to just say thank you so much for being here. I can't, I'm just lost for words, to be honest with you. So, I just want to introduce everyone first, to each other, and then we'll get started officially. Each one of you have a very dear place in my heart, and I'm just so privileged to know every single one of you for whatever reason, on whatever level. And the fact that you're all here, and the fact that you were just such a yes to be here, it speaks volumes to who you are as leaders, not only on the global stage in the global community, but in your own communities as well. And the purpose of this was to really bring voices that I trust and that I know at a very deep level together in a council to speak to what is happening in the world and what's unraveling right now. So with that, I want to introduce Charles, Bam, Brendan, Adam, Ez, Nikhil, Samson, and Kevin to each other. And I hope that for those of you that don't know each other, form some form of a bond or connection moving forward in some capacity. That's a big thing for me as well. Part of my dharma being here is connecting people. So I'm really gonna introduce everyone. I've got a couple of key questions. I just want us to speak from the heart, but really this isn't my platform, this is yours, and I'm sure it will just go wherever it needs to, and I really trust that. And I just thank you from the bottom of my heart and all that I am for being here. So much love and respect and reverence for all of you as brothers, as friends, and just as black people, black leaders in this community, in this world. You're the next wave. Like, I'm fucking ecstatic. I'm jumping out of my skin with so much fucking energy in me right now. I don't even know where to start, but I'm gonna pause for a moment.
Yeah, that's something different for you.
Yeah. Charles. Yeah, something different. I'm gonna pause for a moment. Maybe we just take a couple of deep breaths, brothers. It's really grounding into the intention of today. For me, I just want to be a witness to just you brothers, you men, the lives that you've lived, your wisdom that you have, and what you want to bring forth today in any capacity. And just really, really grateful to have you all here. I'm going to also ask you in a moment after I just introduce you all, just to maybe delve into a few minute introduction, who you are and what's happening in the world right now. But I'll go ahead and I'll take care of that. Has anyone got anything that they need to say before we officially start? Any questions? Ez, brother, yes. Why are you on mute? Hold on.
Muted.
Yep.
You're on mute.
All right, is that better? I believe I muted myself. Can you hear me, brothers?
Yes.
You know, this is momentous in every stage. And so I just want to take a moment, if we could all, and just, as you do typically, give thanks for our indigenous landowners, for our ancestors, for the future that we get to embody within our bodies in this group together right now. And, you know, we'll just pause just for a moment in gratitude. I love you, brothers. Thank you.
I would just like to say thanks to Stefano for getting us together. I would say this is the first that we're all meeting, me meeting you guys. And I know that won't be the last time that we will talk. I can already tell you that. Stefano will tell you the emotion that I have, but I'm just honored to be included in this group. And it'll be raw, you know, but that's what's needed right now. It's a change. And so as we get more into the discussion of that, you'll know why I say that from where I'm coming from.
Thank you, brothers. Okay. We'll officially get cracking.
All right.
So welcome to this very wise council that I feel very privileged to be a part of. Each one of these men here has played a role in my life to a significant degree. Maybe they know it, maybe they don't. Even observing them, how they move through the world, and I can sit here with great honor and great pride and call these men that are here friends, dear friends and brothers. And they definitely have something to say, but beyond just saying, they have something to express from the heart and from the soul. And as I observe what's happening in the world and the chaos and the inequity and the injustice, and just observing the disparity that has been played out for so long, we're talking thousands of years. It's more important now from my perspective that we all grow together. And I've sat with these men in various capacities. I've observed these men in various capacities speak such innate wisdom that has fucking blown me away on more than one occasion. With some of these men, I've had the honor and the privilege to serve deeply with them, serving other men, serving other human beings, changing lives, transforming lives. And today is a little about that. And in a moment, I'm going to pass it on to everyone else. And I'd love for all of you to speak to your personal experiences growing up, wherever you have grown up, however you've grown up. And there's different demographics and ages here as well. And to also, I'm here to be educated. I don't know everything. I don't know it all. I come from a different place. Whilst I know something, I really know very little. And I also want to be educated and I want to feel that. And that's my selfish reason for being here. I'm not going to pretend this doesn't exist. It definitely exists. Because I want to grow with my brothers and people that I love and care for. And potentially there's been times in our interactions where my ignorance has shone through. And I want to be held accountable to that. And that's very hard for me to say because I love from a place of openness, and I also realize the privilege that I carry, it's a lot of the time unconscious. And in advance, I apologize if that ignorance has come through and I've missed something. I've missed the mark on something. And I'm here to be schooled, open-hearted, open-souled. And with that, I'd love to pass. I would love to pass this to Charles, who's our elder here. A beautiful soul, as every single one of you. And if I can pass the mic to our brother Charles, I'm going to put it down for now. And I'm excited to see and to feel and to experience what unravels. I'm sure the world is as well, in whatever capacity I get to experience this transmission.
So I'm Charles Bell. I grew up in South Jersey, Burlington, New Jersey, which is greater Philadelphia area. And I'm a child of the 60s. I lived through walkouts during the assassination of Martin Luther King. And shortly thereafter, Bobby Kennedy. I'm old enough to remember when John F. Kennedy was assassinated. I remember when Medgar Evers was assassinated, Malcolm X. That was a part of my childhood growing up. So I grew up at a time before the Civil Rights Act was even signed into law. And I've said this to quite a few people, that in the last few years, that the climate in this country felt like the 60s. Like you could just feel the tension, you could feel the hate, you could feel how thick it was, that people were not pulling for you. And as much as things have changed, and I don't want to sit here and make it sound like I haven't had a lot of success in my life, because I have. But it's scary for me having. I'm in my family is a blended family. My 3 older boys are Caucasian. My younger, and I'll say my younger 2, are African American. One is biological, and one is just from the love I have from him. He calls me Pops. He's my son. And I fear for young Black men right now. Just like growing up, where you saw a police car and you ran. You ran. It was a scary time then. It's a scary time now. But it's different. With what has happened in the last few weeks, is different. So this is directed to you, Stephanos. When you say about your ignorance and what you bring, I have in the past few days have several of my white friends, males, come to me and open up the conversation. That has never happened in my life before. So things that you may say or ask about, or that we've talked about, you may feel are ignorant. Well, you don't know, but if you bring something up, it's not going to be hurtful for me. It's not mean-spirited. And I know you're doing it because you want to learn. And that's what's going to make this world better. And it's going to be incremental. The fact that you wanted to get us together is a passionate part for me, to be a part of this. But it's scary to me. It's a different time, and it feels different, and the support is different, and the emotion that is coming out from people is different this time. But I just hope that it's sustained and that we move forward. But I think this is putting this together and having us reach out is going to make that happen. But it's painful when I think about growing up and being called boy, and and because I was in a higher level of the academic classes, in my community I was known as an Uncle Tom, and in a white community I was an N. I was the N-word. And I had tight friends, and so those same friends that I had back then are my friends now. And my boys know them. They know that if something is needed, they could reach out to my 3 friends that were there for me from the time I was 8 years old. They know that. But I'm looking to expand that. That's why I'm honored to be a part of this, because this is what's going to happen. I want my story and what I reach out and what I can be to be transformative. I wanted to be a mentor. I want to learn. And I feel that as time goes on, I'm going to learn from each and every one of you guys, just like I learned from Stephanos. I met him at a retreat where I had this, I don't know, man, I was Quasimodo. I had such a knot on this shoulder that he helped me get rid of, and it has not been back since. That was in September. He helped me unload some stuff that was so deep that it has now released me to be a part of this. Because I think prior to that happening, I would have been a little more reluctant to speak up. But I've dealt with cronyism at work. I've dealt with not being respected for what I'm capable of as a man, period. And I feel that there's a change that's going on in this country, but it's only going to keep happening if we put the pressure on. We have to keep the pressure on. And I'll end by saying, years ago I was in San Diego, and I remember seeing this young black man, and this young brother had a t-shirt on. As I got closer, I read it, and it said, "I'm your worst nightmare. I'm an educated black man." And it's like education and knowledge messes them up. And that's what we have to keep sharing and passing on, and just make sure that the generations behind us have that as the leverage that they need to succeed. So, I'm sure I'll have more to say as the evening goes on, but at this point I'll end there.
Thank you, brother. Thank you so much for speaking from your heart and your truth. Samson, I want to call on you next, brother. I'm just going where I feel, and again, rather than me also just calling in, just brothers, just chime in. Just when someone feels complete in this particular portion, just come in. I don't need to facilitate that. You're more than capable. But Samson, I'm just feeling drawn to you, brother, at this point. The thing is with Samson and I've never physically met this man. I feel so connected to him, though. And he was introduced by a very, very dear friend of ours, a mutual friend who, I would go to the ends of the earth and beyond for, and vice versa. And I see this man. I can't fucking wait to meet him in the physical. But I see this man. I see this power, man, that comes from you, bro. Like every single one of you here, Samson, I see that. Oh man. I'm speechless for it, but I just want to, whatever's on your heart right now to, introduce yourself. And then from here, brothers, everyone just jump in. I know this is going to be a deep conversation.
Stephan, thank you so much for putting this together. Charles, for being an elder. Thank you for the space and the energy that you carry for all of us. And Brendan and Adam, I've seen the work that you guys have done. I think Source Radiance, I've also seen you guys on social media. So I appreciate just what you guys put out into the world. Azariah Nikhil, did I pronounce that correctly? Okay, I'm definitely looking forward to connecting. So name is Samson, and I have not physically met Stephan yet, but I felt like I've known him. And I was born in London. I come Nigerian background. So these last few weeks, as everything has been happening, it's kind of like you go deeper and deeper into even why your parents raised you the way they raised you, right? And, so in a Nigerian household, it's very strict. It's very protective. It's very almost riding the energy of being perfect. And I've never understood why until now. And it's, like looking back, it's to literally have a chance in the world. It was to have a chance. And Stephan, when you shared what you shared, here's the thing. It's like, I don't know about anybody else, but I didn't feel no ill towards you because I know it's not your fault. All this is what we inherited. But honestly, when it comes to this conversation, what I feel I almost feel this fear. And it's not from me, but it's from the fear of me being myself as a threat to everybody else that doesn't look like me. And, you know, just like Charles, academic, because of how I was raised, I got it from both sides, because from my side, that wasn't the norm. Being highly academic, having great grades, it just wasn't the norm because that's what was fed to us. And the other side, I got, you're not like a normal Black person, or you don't sound Black, or, you know, you're different than what I'm used to. And back then, I didn't understand those nuances, because for me, it was almost like a sense of I have to walk like that to protect myself. So I didn't even have the realization, I didn't have the wisdom at that point to understand the difference, or even those subtle remarks as harmful. So I could only imagine how much I had to bend myself, how much I had to form myself to fit into a world that saw me as different. But the thing is, I didn't understand it. So when it comes to the idea of white privilege, and my personal belief, it was created from obviously ignorance, but is this deep fear. It's like this deep fear that we're a threat for some reason. So now you have this wave of, okay, if I'm a threat, I have to move accordingly. I got to move accordingly. I have to shift how I talk. I have to shift how I walk. When I see somebody in this that's white, I have to, like, things inside of me change. So I can, and it sounds silly, but it's real, so I can make it home safely. And the thing is, I'm grateful for those experiences, because, you know, like the life that I have, like I'm grateful. But the way that I had to navigate through it, the way that most of us had to navigate through it, it was highly stressful, you know? And some people didn't have to, or some people didn't even make it this far because they didn't have certain tools. And so I'm like, the thing is, I'm at a point where I'm grateful that this is coming up. It feels heavy, it feels ugly, it feels confrontational, but it's so needed, because there's no reason why I shouldn't be able to walk into any room and just be myself, my God-given self, my all of myself, without feeling like I should be seen different. You know, there's been many rooms that I walked into where, and in this space, in the wellness, in the healing space, in this spiritual space, spirituality space, where most of the time I'm the only Black one. And it's not because I just all of a sudden woke up. Obviously, yeah, but the thing is like, could there be rhetoric? Could there be energetic rhetoric that keeps us out? You know, there should be no reason why I get to be the only one. So there's so many different ways you can look at this, but I mean, for me, I have the tools to be able to see this differently, but for my brother who's 16, where the conversation is, listen, stay your ass at home, because it's so sensitive out there that I cannot risk losing you just by going to the store and buying yourself a drink. So my little brother's literally in the last 2 weeks been playing games, just for the fear of walking out and then seeing him psychologically is a threat, waking up something inside of a white person to now inflict pain on him. You know? So, I definitely know that we're going to kind of move through stuff, but I mean, born in London, you know, I've lived in Philadelphia 16 years. So I know exactly, you're right over the bridge, Charles. I moved all over, and then just moving all over, it's almost like I had to walk on eggshells. I had to walk on eggshells to see if it was safe just to even be in this space. So yeah, I'm ready for this dialogue to continue because we can't be the ones that's calling it out. I just feel because you walk into a space that you earned, that you put the work in to be in, but then automatically there's this conversation that's set off, you know, in the space that I did, or I followed a path that fit the narrative of who they said I was. Not even like understanding that I'm just, you know, I'm a man that utilized my gifts. I worked my ass off to get to where I'm in this space right now. So I just want to be at a place where there's not a narrative, there's not a filter to see me as I am. And then we get to see each other equally. So yeah, I guess I'll pass it back to Stefan.
You know, my beloved and I, Christine, which I believe all of you know. Yes, all of you know. We were teaching an inner child workshop on the weekend, and she described something really perfectly. She said, you just imagine all of your trauma, the physical abuse, the sexual abuse, the emotional abuse, the time your dad told you were wrong, the time that you were bullied at school, the time that your best friend told you he or she hate you and they never want to see you again. Think about all of the developmental issues that you've had as a child. Now, compound that by just the color of your skin, and add that as a layer on top of all of the complexities that we deal with as human beings. That is the privilege. And that really, really rung true for me on so many levels. There's just this other layer, and we're so scared of difference, right? We're so fucking fearful of what is different instead of embracing and celebrating difference. We're so fearful of it. And I'm tired of it. I'm personally fucking tired of it. I grew up in a racist household. My father was so racist. I'm so embarrassed to say that here. So fucking embarrassed. And I've had some of these conversations with Bam and Nikhil and Ez. Personally, it's just the fucking shame around that. And that's not in my heart. And I know that's not in it. Our hearts as human beings have a great potential, and we're not living it. And this here, hearing you brothers just come out, I feel that's a big part. It's more than that. It's top down, there's grassroots, there's geopolitical, there's socioeconomic, there's a heap of shit that needs to happen. But this is a big part of that.
Steph, can I respond to Samson with something he said?
Yeah, and ask me, brother, all you, go for it.
Yeah, Samson, I really resonate with this idea around being a threat and having to change what you're doing in order to not be seen as a threat. The reality is, it doesn't actually matter how you show up, because just being in a black body, we are seen as a threat. And I've personally experienced that. I know all you have experienced it, and it's not about proving anything. But when it comes down to it, we as black men need to show up as we are, who we are, because that is the message. So as we step into our fullness and our greatness, it's like where it is a risk. It is a risk to put yourself out there because of how we're viewed. But at the same time, it's our responsibility. It's our responsibility to show up fully embodied as who we are, knowing that someone else might view us a certain way. So I really respect what you're saying. I hear where you're coming from. I can go ahead and check in since I'm on the mic. Adam Jackson, checking in from Maui, Hawaii. I grew up in Dayton, Ohio. My father is black and my mother is white. So I grew up biracial in the Midwest. Charles, my father is probably about the same age as you are. My sister was born in 1969. So I look at my parents as revolutionaries. You see what I'm saying? And so when I was growing up, I had this sense that I was the embodiment of the future. I was the embodiment of change. When I was in first grade, I played Martin Luther King in the I Have a Dream speech play. And I was so proud, and the teachers were so proud. And I had this sense like, oh, the world is going to be better because I'm here, because this is what's happening. And it was a false sense of security. And so as I got older and started to have my own experiences, anywhere from, I was arrested for skateboarding. I was put in handcuffs, put in the back of a police car. 2 of my white friends are told to go home. Well, I'm going down to jail for fucking skateboarding. You know what I'm saying? Where when I was a freshman in high school, I came in as a quarterback. They kicked me off the football team because they said I couldn't have dreadlocks and be on the football team. I had dreads when I was very young. I've had them ever since. And this has been a big part of my path into honoring not only my African ancestry, but honoring myself and knowing who I am. And so I was kicked off the football team for having dreadlocks, right? In 1994. By 2004, everybody in that damn NFL's got dreadlocks coming out of the back of the helmet. You know what I'm saying? I've always had a sense of myself being somewhat ahead of the times. And, you know, I have this sense of unity embedded in my DNA because of who I am. I've experienced the best of both worlds. I've experienced the worst of both worlds. I have 2 grandmothers who love me very much. And in fact, they love each other. One of my grandmothers has passed, but they knew each other, and they, you know, we spent family time together. And so for me to have that experience with a white grandmother who really loved me and a black grandmother who really loved me, I just couldn't go into the world understanding how people could hate each other because of race, because of how they looked. And so, you know, it's been a part of my mission to bring my embodiment into the world and to have a voice and to have that voice be heard. I'm a co-founder of Sacred Sons, which is a men's work organization. I'm also the host of a Sacred Sons podcast, in which I just did an episode on race. And the episode is called Holding the Vision for Justice and Oneness, because I believe it's possible. With everything I've experienced, with everything I'm witnessing, with everything I've personally witnessed, I still believe that that's possible. And so, yeah, what I want to say to you, Stefanos, is the reason why I said yes to this call is because of how many times you have said yes to me. And because you have shown up for me when I asked you to show up, and you showed up, man, you showed up sick to C3. And you held space and you told me like, yo, when I show up fully. And I believed you. And so for you to ask me, for me to be on this call, for one, I'm honored, but it's also a reflection of your ability to show up for other men of color. And I've held space with you, so I've seen it. And when there's a big conversation going on out in the community, in the spiritual community, but just in general about what can I do? What can I do? I've received so many DMs this week. Hey, Adam, first it starts out with this sense of pity. How are you doing? You know, and I'm like, get the fuck out of here with that. Like Steph is like, because I know myself, okay? Because I know myself. I don't have time for the pity. I'm not here for that. But what I'm here for is to do what you do. I just keep replying to my friends and my family. Do what you do. If you make art that's representative of what's actually going on in the world. If you're a spiritual healer, give some tools away for free to BIPOC community, whatever you want to call it. If you are if you are a musician, like write songs that are inspiring change, that are inspiring the change that we all want to see in this world. The reality is that there are many, many more of us than there are of them. And what I mean by that is there are many more people in this world who are willing to see oneness, who are willing to see unity, and who are willing to hold the powers that be accountable, because that comes first. We can't spiritually bypass what's present and what's real and just jump to the oneness. Like I thought I could when I was in first grade. That's what I'm here to say. When I was in first grade, I thought that. And now what I know is true is that we have to do the real work. We have to do the work on a political level, on a spiritual activism level, on all levels in order for that oneness to be achieved. And with everything going on, I really believe that that is possible. And I think now is the time. And I'm also on this call to make sure that the momentum from this movement carries on. And when the next news cycle comes through, when the next election comes through, that this movement doesn't get silenced. So with that, I'm in, brothers. Thank you all for being here. I love y'all. Who's up next?
How's it, brothers? Can you all hear me? All right. So I'm Ezra bin Ernst, born Ezra Derek Ernst Albert, renamed Ngati Nadumo. I have just been on the journey of figuring out, deciding and standing in what it is to be a man, to be a human, to be a being, to be all of the chocolate that I am on this journey. I was born in Brooklyn, New York, moved to Chicago, Evanston, right on the border. From Evanston, I went down to Florida, from Florida back up to Chicago, from Chicago to Baltimore, from Baltimore to the Midwest, from the Midwest to Hawaii. So I was raised throughout the States and I became a man in Hawaii. And I had a very special moment in Haleakala. So my brother who's in Maui, it's good to hear that. And I definitely plan on connecting with you next time I'm back on island. Hawaii has been very special to me. This is the place where I got to step away from.
We would definitely do that. And Bam's going to join us because he's going to be here next month.
Boom. All right. I might have to just come out then, just like that. So I'm in Santa Clarita, California right now. I've been cruising up and down the West Coast before this thing started. I was just, creating a surf rig and experiencing what it is to hit the waters up this way. Steph and I met actually in Copenhagen. If I'm saying it right, I always get that place wrong, the name, but I was on a journey coming from suicide and depression and multiple paradigm crashes, and just in a place of putting the pieces back together and essentially on a ticking time bomb to kill myself still. So, I left with the promise to my brother who called me when I was living on Kauai, and a lot of stuff fell apart in my life, to go and see what it is, what is this about? Boxing everything up and just backpacking and going to see the world a little bit. And I began to have a light in my eye by the time Steph and I met, and I recognized that light in him when we bump into each other all over the place. I was in a relationship with a woman who worked at a place where we were both stuffing our faces. And, I was in a place of just softening up a little bit, but deep in my heart, I was still traveling with a lot of fear, a lot of anger, a lot of resentment for what I would feel in the US and what I would get everywhere else that I went based on this skin color, based on my experience that I've experienced in my marriage. I've been married twice, one to a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, beautiful being, and the second time to a South Pacific woman from the island of Palau. And she's, a mix of Spanish, Palauan, and the Palauans are black, whether they know it or not, Filipina, and maybe Spanish. So, on this journey for me, what I've been sticking with and trying to maintain is a level of naivety that's helped me to continue to see people beyond these prisms that we navigate. This is a deep inner knowing that I have, that when I look at you, if I look you in the eyes, all of what we've been told about racism that's been presented to us, that affects us in all our life areas, such as education, entertainment, economics, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, war. I'm quoting from a book. I don't know if you guys know about Neely Fuller, but he's put a lot of this in check for me. Granted, I still stick to trying to understand this with my own eyes and heart. We're in a system that I'd like to take responsibility for at this time, that I would like to make a change in, that I've decided for the rest of the duration of the time that I navigate this earth, that I will focus on redefining in a compensatory way what is justice, who is being mistreated, how can I level up that mistreatment for the sake of the people who've been doing this for us and have got us to this point, and for the sake of everyone who suffers in this moment and who may suffer in times to come. I'm willing to suffer, but I don't want this to continue the way that it is. So if this movement begins to lose momentum, I'm with you, brother, in terms of keeping the momentum up within myself and looking in and changing the first thing that's important, which is myself, and allowing what some may call the law of correspondence to take effect, and watching that in my outer world. On my journey, I've been beat up. I've been backstabbed quite often by people of all different nationalities, but surprised most often really by the people who don't look like me, who I thought were comfortable with me. I've been, again, like I said, beat up, jumped. I've been hit by vehicles. I've experienced all these different types of prejudice and hate and fear in all the different areas that I lived in. I've been hit with a bat. I've experienced a lot of body burden, to the point where the place that I felt most comfortable when I did move to Hawaii, I was living on Oahu the first time, and I've lived on Big Island as well as Kauai. I was working at Schofield Barracks, and there was one day where I was just me on this range, working for the military as a contractor, and I was in a position of being in charge and solo. And the 50 cals start going off. This is because it's a firing range. And I sighed, and I cried, and I fell asleep because I felt like safe. I felt more safe listening to 50 cal rounds go off and not worrying about them ricocheting into the shit hut that I was in than I did when I would come back to the States. I realized I feel guilt when I get to step away and be on the islands and reconnect with the land, the Aina, and reconnect with my ancestors and be exposed to fruit and things growing while my brothers and sisters are in the States. Being exposed to nonsense, living in places where food doesn't grow on trees, where you're stuck in the cement, dealing with the heat in tenement buildings. And even if you're in the suburbs, you're just in a horizontal tenement because you're still dealing with the same shit everywhere that you can't speak to, that you can't show how smart you are, how intelligent you are, the depth that you have in your heart. You cannot be sensitive. You can be kind, but you got to beware. You can't trust your brothers because there's programs running within them that keep you in this state of division. You can't fully talk about anything and nobody has the answers. Our artists go crazy. I remember watching Kanye when he was with Sway. I don't know if any of you follow him. At one point you did, and he was on TV and he was talking about him trying to affect in his artistry, the fashion industry, and like the people he tried to connect with and how there were barriers put before him. And when Sway started to talk, he was losing it. He was like, you don't have the answers. And a lot of people made fun of him, but I cried because I felt him. So I felt like we're all trying to figure things out. We're all in this situation full of confusion and nobody has the answers. It's one of the major reasons why I wanted to kill myself, why I wanted to kill other people, why at one time I wanted to kill my father, is because of the conditioning and because of the ugliness that we've encountered. So I still carry a bit of charge, but what I have now, having done these travels, having sat with Steph and connected with him, through the Reclaim Your Kingdom, having gone on a journey on my own, having gone back to Africa and been initiated with the Bwiti and experienced the masculine and the feminine of people who look like me, caring for me from cancer to healthy with, you can say indigenous medicine and know-how and connecting with my intuition. What I get now is a means to transmute whatever comes up and to allow it to come up and to speak and to say, I hurt and I feel. And I still hold unity for all of us because we're still on this planet, which is a project, which is a huge prison in and of itself in a quarantine. And I look into the sciences and the means that, hopefully I'll be able to articulate once I digest it all to other people who look like me and who don't. It's a burden to be at one end of the spectrum and sit with other people who don't know that they're minorities, because they can pass for something, but if push comes to shove, you may find out you're not as white as you think you are, based on the criteria of quote unquote whiteness. Beyond that, it's not defined. Our blackness is not defined. Racism, ratios, racial, like these words, they're not as old as we give them credit for being. And so for me to go into a journey of trying to figure out what it is to be me, what am I, protecting myself and also allowing myself to be hurt as much as I can, trusting that I can heal from it. It's been one hell of a fucking ride. Excuse my French, and I'm not done. And I feel like it's really special and beautiful that we're getting to come together. I went to Santa Monica just to go surf, really. Not even Santa Monica, like a spot a little bit north of Santa Monica. And I decided, let me just cruise through and see what was going on. I had no intention of doing any marches. And there was a march going on. Like, I went to Subway. I went to get a sandwich and there's a march outside. And I'm like, you know what? far be it from me to not walk with these brothers and sisters and see what's going on here. And so I went in and I walked with them and I, cheered with them, and I just wanted to take it in and feel I had my hands open and my heart open and my eyes open and my being open to see what was actually happening. And I was touched. And when the march ended, I just sat on the street by myself and then I cried. I didn't cry because I was so touched for the march. I cried because all of this has happened before, time and time again. And because, as my brother said a moment ago, as you get to know yourself, you can kind of see the future a little bit. And you can feel into, is this a dog and pony show because there's some political thing or some judicial thing that's going on that we're being diverted to as a whole? And are we just going to jump on the next thing or not? And I just sat with it. I sat on the street and people passed by on the bikes and looked and they smiled. Hey, to the march. I was like, hey, and not holding it against them, but just really deciding, you know what, I'm going to sit in this. And I thought about that song by Tupac. Is there a heaven? Is there a ghetto in heaven? I forget how it goes, but, one of the things he speaks to is like, he speaks to the looting. He speaks to how he predicted it. And here we are again. Just filling into the fact that we look to leaders, but so many of us have been afraid to be the leaders of ourselves because we're afraid we're going to be killed. We're afraid we're going to be assassinated in this insanity that we've been brought up in, that we've come into. And so I've had, and Steph's been there for me, I've had the experience of literally going insane and having to put my mind back together and calling out and having very few people come. Nikhil was around for that, me going crazy, coming back from Africa the last time, for reasons that I won't get into, but I think it was important for it to happen. I don't want to go on for too long, but what I do want to speak to is, here we are together. Here's the opportunity to make a change. And what I don't want to do with this opportunity is not look at what has been happening. I'm open to expressing my experience and have it be seen, but even if nobody wants to hear my experience, you're going to hear my intention moving forward and the actions that, I intend to take. And they don't all have to be violent, because we've been living in violence. So I want to meet that with my truth. I want to meet it with the emotion, the pain, but overall the love and the intention and the truth that I hold, that I carry, that I feel like all of us on this call already know. We're in this together. And we can't dismantle and have intimacy amongst each other and true connection. We can't have real privilege. It's not a privilege, as I mentioned before, when me and Steph were talking, to be a part of a system that gives you certain rights that you really can't feel good about when you know the truth about those rights. It's not a privilege. We're all in a system of bondage. And it's just important to recognize that, but to free yourselves, to liberate yourselves within first. And I have no doubt that all of us are working on that and doing that. And then, to bring it outside our bodies, quote unquote, outside. And so I love you, brothers, and I'm here with you at whatever capacity that I can be. I've essentially taken the time to redefine what I decide to be my wealth versus the wealth that's been presented to me, that has been a detriment and an energy vampirism and a haze of insanity. And you are my wealth. Your intention is my wealth. All of us showing up, that's my wealth. I'm a wealthy being in this moment. And I love you guys and I appreciate you. And I'm with you. Ride and live as opposed to ride and die,
Hey, I have to say something real quick in response to what you were saying. I think that when you look at the true minority in this world, there's people that expect they can deal with it. If we're violent, they can deal with that. They can push us to that. That's the button, right? They push us, and if we come at them with violence, then they can maneuver that. But when you come at them with intelligence and let them trap themselves. I've been in situations where people of privilege, white privilege, and they get so comfortable they forget I'm black. And it's like they let their guard down, and you see behind. You see exactly how they think because they say something. I'm a physician. I was in, as a resident, I was working with some cardiologists, and this one guy was like, yeah, you know, those residents are just like, just treat him like a house nigger. And then he just looked at me and went, because he's like, oh my God, he forgot that I was Black. He didn't see it, and by that it was out, you know. And obvious at that point, there was no respect for him going forward, none. You know, and I realized that the biggest threat to him was my intelligence, and not coming at him, not really giving him a reason or a way that he could fight back, fight what I was doing, where he could point, oh yeah, you know, that guy is violent, you know, do this, that, you know. To be handcuffed because you were skateboarding just because you were Black. It doesn't take much of a reason. It takes no reason. So really, the thing that we have that's to our advantage is our intelligence. It's because, in all honesty, we can't be outthought. We've been in too many situations, so we can't be outthought. Fighting puts us on a different level. So I just needed to add that.
Oh, Charles, thank you. I just want to speak to that as well. You know, it's like, often I'm in so many situations where this whole situation has also become laughable to me in a way, even though it's not funny. Because people do they trap themselves with their words. And what we've been given, all of us, and I think what we're going to get to expand upon is just the capacity that we built along the way, that is a capacity that is something we should be grateful for, despite all this, because it's going to give us the capacity to truly affect change. I love you, brothers. I'm gonna just be quiet now. I want to get to know the rest of us. Aho and aloha.
Aho, aloha.
Brothers, I feel like this is an opportune moment that I would love to just jump in. And first of all, I just want to just share how honored I feel to just be here in this space, just receiving this wisdom and depth of expression from such powerful kings. And, you know, beyond our color of our skin and our unique human experience, I can just feel the force of God coming forth and just lifting the veil that we have created ourselves, funnily enough, and just reclaiming this truth. And it's time, and it's just fascinating how life on this planet has come forth from Africa with this dark skin and pride and this tribal ambition to just connect to the land and be one, and how it's coming full circle. It's almost like, you know, we are the ones that are actually bringing forth truth through having traversed into the darkest depths of our own inner world as a collective psyche, and having felt all of the disparity, all of the injustice, all of the darkness and hate and fear, and through our own experience transmuting it forth in this moment here and now as a collective movement. And it's just fucking phenomenal, and I'm excited. And, you know, even though there is this depth of density and pain which is arising up, like a valve has been opened up, and it's painful, yet this is precisely why we are here right now. And specifically you powerful brothers having this conversation and opening up this narrative, it is us that must be the living, breathing embodiment of this truth, so that every step that we take, every single sphere of influence that we have is uplifted through our recognition of our unity as equal beings. And not just equal, we are life, we are the mystery. And, you know, it's fascinating because what's come up, I'll share a little bit about my backstory. So by heritage, I'm Indian, right? And I was born in Bombay, and my family migrated to Australia at 5 years old, obviously for a better life, right? And I was a young child coming to Australia. It felt so alien, but at the same time, like I was so I don't know, there's a part of me that wanted to be like everyone else around me. And for the most part, it really confused my psyche. And see, it's a different situation that I'm in as opposed to being African American and growing up in that environment. And I've felt the pain on the land there. I've got some incredible brothers and friends that carry this heritage and lineage, and the depth of despair there. Yet it's also been reflected here on the land in Australia. And I want to just tap into that real quickly, because the history of the Indigenous people here in Australia has been literally, the genocide has been just shoved underneath the rug. Okay, to the point that like I can't stay in Australia for more than like 2 months at a time, because in my body I feel the blood on the land, the dissonance, and I just need to get the fuck out of here. And funnily enough, because of this logistical scenario right now, I'm here, I can't leave, and I'm being forced to face my own family karma here, and also the narrative that's so entrenched into this collective grid and how it's playing out. Because I see the white people around me, and it's just like everyone's fucking oblivious to what's going on, totally fucking oblivious to truth, to the fundamental abuse of humanity. And really, it's not that anyone is to blame, it's the fact that we cannot look at and unravel the fracturing in our psyche. Okay, the fact that we still see the other as this polarized version of ourselves that literally threatens our own safety and our way of being. And look, I can't blame white people for acting that way, because as many of you have already said, it's this like perpetuation of generation after generation with these cultural constructs being encoded with these seeds that have been sown. And it's like, fuck, how can we go back into the soil and pull out these weeds and allow the ecosystem of our collective to naturally come back into a state of balance again? And sometimes it's going to take for us fucking going into the fucking jungle and just digging it out with force. At least the big weeds that are taking up the most energy, right? It's how can we remove those? And it starts with ourselves as well, you know? And it's just like, it's really interesting. I walk around the park here. So right now where I'm staying, it's quite a privileged, high socioeconomical area, and mostly white people around. And I'm here with my family momentarily. And I go for a walk around the park, and like I wear my hoodie. And it's funny, I've caught myself. I'm like, fuck, like, do I look dodgy? Like I kind of like deflect my energy, or I move in a different direction, because I'm like, wait a second, like I've still got this fear in my vessel that someone is going to judge me and cast on their projection, to the point that in my life, like, because I was never fully aware of that specific dissonance inside of myself, but there was also like trauma from childhood, from other aspects, sexuality and projections from family lineage, which Steph has also helped me unravel as well. And I realized for the most of my life, I've been trying to escape and get the fuck out of here, because I see this planet and I'm like, shit, like, how can we create something that is worth living here? How can we literally unify ourselves so that we can be in harmony with each other? And like, I don't know how we're going to do it, but now that I am here with this conversation with you leaders, with you brothers, and I'm seeing what's unraveling, what the upheaval that's taking place, I understand that this is our prime opportunity to connect to our uniqueness. It's about creativity. It's how can we transmute our own shadow and use those ashes from the burning constructs and ignite our creativity and our expression, to share our voice, to share our art in this world, to share our uniqueness and bring it forth, and just don't fucking care. It's like, what are we willing to die for? Rather, what are we willing to live for? Because we only have this breath, we only have this day. And I feel like this is such an important opportunity that we have collectively architected together through dimensions bringing forth now to bring light to truth. The rug is being pulled now. All these pieces are here. How can we love these parts of ourselves? How can we love the parts of ourselves that have been racist? How can we love the parts of ourselves that has actually subjugated ourselves? Because it all begins there. Because we have no right to speak to this unless we can really speak to those parts of ourselves that we are still holding underneath the water, or we are still disassociating from or putting in the corner of our being. So it's really a multifaceted process right now. And I'm just honored to be in this space because I feel the depth of your uniqueness, your experiences, and the pain that you've been through. And I'm here to learn from you, and I'm here to share, and I'm here to co-create and to remix this whole collective experience into a fucking profound remembrance of our unified rainbow, which is our truth. And with that being said, like, I'm here in any way that you want to use me, collaborate, share, and we're all in this together. So thank you, Steph, dear brother, for just creating this and inviting me. I'm honored. I love each and every single one of you. And yeah, let's keep this energy moving. Okay, much love and aho.
Aho. Nikhil, I got one thing to say right quick. Just in terms of how do we unravel that fear response and what that looks like. And you spoke to it beautifully, because what we first have to do is take a look at our own personal life's trauma. So we have to start talking about our own trauma, and then we have to look at generational trauma, because that fear response that's coming from folks who they feel the privilege or maybe even the responsibility of what their ancestors have done. And the very fear is that one day the power will shift and they will receive the violence that their ancestors impacted upon those people. And that goes for America, that goes for Australia, that goes for India, that goes for South America, that goes for the Congo. It goes across the history of this earth. And so when we're talking about healing generational trauma, we have to, I work in men's spaces, right? So but in reality, we have to get men and women into safe spaces to go there, to be witnessed in their pain, to be seen in their shame. And that's when I'm talking about, like, that white fear, because that's what it is. It's white fear. It's the Karens and the Kyles, you know what I'm saying, that we're seeing on news calling police on picnics in the park and shit. They need to take a look at their trauma and the trauma that their ancestors imparted on human beings. And until they do that, they're going to be afraid. And the only way for them to do that is to come to it from their perspective. There's nothing I can tell someone that's going to unravel it for them.
There's a lot of energy being spent on fear of retaliation right now.
Yes.
A lot of energy. And that's where we gain. That's where we gain. We move forward from that.
I wholeheartedly agree. And it's funny when you spoke to the message of people reaching out, and almost like, I almost feel like it's so robotic that it's like, hey, I feel your pain. And truthfully, I'm like, I'm not in pain, because, like, there's so much work that's been done around this. So we don't have to, well, speaking for myself, so I don't have to continue that and carry that. But I think the biggest thing when you were speaking, Adam and Nikhil, is that also until we see the boxes that these powers that be have put us in, right? Because I think what happens, what triggers a lot of this, is that the moment that they see me in my Black skin outside the box that they understand me to be in based on what somebody else told them, it's now a threat. It's different. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, that's not what I'm used to. So I feel like we also get to dismantle the boxes or the idea of what we think someone is or should be. And I feel we live in a time right now where there's, again, like, there's no one image of a Black person or a white person or whatever. It's just God, the universe, like, operates through like so many different ways. And I feel like it's how I see it, it's almost like a big game right now for the power, for our higher power, because it's almost like it's confusing people to help them realize that this game we've been playing this whole entire time has been fucked up, has been literally fucked up. It's like we're caught up in these boxes instead of just talking to each other to understand who we are. We're okay listening to somebody else's idea of who we are. So I think it begins also understanding that when people see that as a Black person, I'm not dangerous, I'm not a gangster, I'm not, you know, I don't fit this narrative you want me to be in based on the movies and the music that you always hear. Once they understand that that's not who I am, and then vice versa, like Stefan, that you're not, again, it's almost like this white is right and everything else is not. Like once people understand that privilege is also has some dark shit to it, I think, well, that's when equality will happen. I think what's happening is because of the privilege, they're hiding a lot of the other side. So nobody really owns their shit. Like, and I don't want to say nobody, but in a sense of white privilege, if we're utilizing in this conversation, whites are not owning their shit because they've gotten away with it for so long that they feel like, well, you know, like I don't have any shit. So I think, Adam, to speak to what you said, what's happening is the Karens and the, what did you call the guys?
Karens and the Kyles.
The Karens and the Kyles.
No disrespect to any Karens or Kyles out there. Y'all, but y'all know who y'all are.
Right.
Big up Karens and Kyles, big up.
Right. The Karens and the Kyles, I almost feel like they're meeting with the reckoning of like, you got some shit, you know? And I think that's what's happening. They've gotten away, Karen and Kyle have gotten away with so much shit with the help of the system and the generational construct and perspective that has allowed it, that now they're not getting away with it no more and they're fucking freaking out.
But have they really gotten away with it, Samson? Because they're carrying a burden. That fear is not good to carry around.
Right.
That instinct to hate on someone, that is not healthy. So I'm here to say, like, I know what you're saying, they got away with it, right? But also they haven't gotten away with it because it's in their hearts.
I agree.
They're spreading it to their children. Like that fear is the virus.
Right.
Fear is the thing that's causing the sickness in our culture.
Right. I was talking about, I feel the fear is what's keeping everything alive.
Yeah.
Kev, Bam, I've got so many fucking questions now that I've been writing down from the epicness that have been coming from your beings. But I'm going to pause that. Kev, Bam, I don't want to. I fucking need to hear from both of you right now. Because if I don't, something's going to fucking happen here with me. I'm going to implode, explode, something. The stars are going to collapse. I need to hear this. Come on, something. I just want to hear your sweet voices.
Go ahead, Bam. You can rock with it, brother.
I've been on a lot of these this week. I'm just
Me too.
I'm kind of tired of it, to be honest with you. I'm getting kind of triggered. I'm getting fidgety. Like I don't want to be here, to be honest, right now. So
I love it. It's
tough for me. So you take this one, and then I'm gonna come in with a alley and dunk this shit.
Got you. I love it to you, brother. I love it to you.
I love you, brother. Send you some love, bro.
So there's a couple things to chime in on in the nature of the game itself and what everyone spoke to for me. And one above all that has me living in the capacity I'm living in now with what I teach in creatorhood is that life isn't just what it is. It's always what we say and feel it is, always. And it doesn't negate the nature of the stories we experience, because that's what we experience in the nature of our own creation and what the collective experiences. It isn't what we think it is often. So like there's still the narrative in duality consciousness where we believe that there's something against us or opposing forces, right? And so then we think that the game's fucked up. We think that something's wrong with the system, when the truth is this physical reality is, like I like to call it the game of limitation. It's literally consciousness or love itself, right? Greater capacity of self, exploring all the ways it returns to itself. Right, that's all consciousness cares about. That's all life cares about. It just wants to be fully, authentically expressed. And it does it through every necessary angle that reveals where we aren't doing that, right? And this is the idea of where love, when we talk about love being the like most sustained force in existence or where it comes through, that's literally what it's designed to do. It literally moves through every capacity of self to go, here's where you ain't being that shit, right? No matter how long it takes. So when we talk about the idea of the system or the structure, it's not just the narrative that plays out, it's our perpetuation of it. Because I've been in those spaces where, you know, I experienced in every angle of the concept of discrimination in both sides, right? Because I'm being multiracial myself, where in one aspect, early 90s, people used to tell me I'm not supposed to exist because Black and white people aren't supposed to be together. And then there's another narrative where it's like I'm either discriminated against for being Black or not Black enough, and then I'm getting brawls with cops constantly because I wouldn't back down from that shit. And for me, it was more about, and what I came to know as I had to navigate my own shit and shadows, is that this entire game is about stepping forward, right? It's like life is about being fully engaged. None of it is about griping about the ills of the world. It's literally designed to go, yo, here's where things are. What do you do with this information? Do we keep it going the same direction, or do we do something different? And the more that we're all willing to step in authentically, which is the point, like what you were sharing, Samson, where you believed, right, that you had to somehow do this because you see it as a threat, but then that's the narrative, right? And for me, it was like, what I came to on my journey as I became more embodied with the work I do, and you know, Stefanos and Adam and man, you guys know well about it from the work we do, is that it comes down to, you can think whatever the fuck you think about me, but I'll show up in full authentic expression. And either that's going to reveal to you what's really up, or at least bring up your shit enough that if you want to step away from me, you can carry that with you. Go, damn, I got some shit to work through, or fuck him, until that fuck him becomes, oh wait, that's my shit. And that's the game, right? It's like our job as individuals is we have our personal reality, and then we have the collective reality. And the game is how we all show up for each other in every respect, because there's support in the form of, you know, you're strong enough, you got this, you can do this, right? There's something more for us. We see a greater vision for the world. No matter what we go through, we got this. And then there's the other version that goes, what's up? You gonna embody that shit or what? I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna come at you. I'm gonna do this with you. I'm gonna do that. It goes, what's up? Are you bringing this up or what? We going in or what? And that's the narrative that we're stepping into, because that's literally in every culture in the world. And that's the game. And I often talk about, what I've come to realize is, it's not so much about racism. Racism is a valid experience, but it's still a side effect. It's not the fucking cause, right? But it gets played out that way. Because if someone feels, what I found is there's like a primary rule of emotional intelligence, and then there's a generating appeal for everybody. The two things that everyone wants, and if you're healthy and in alignment and flowing, you automatically feel them. And if you don't, your life plays out in that misalignment into full distortion. And that's whether you actually feel safe or significant within your own being, right? Regardless of the circumstance. That we go out, and is it a potential that you can get killed from any X, Y, and Z? Yes, you could fucking fall down a flight of stairs. You can trip over. I know a dude that literally tripped over like a seemingly insignificant stick and just hit the ground in a certain way that ruptured some vessel, and he fucking died. And everyone was like, what? You know what I mean? And it was like, it's not so much living in the fear that you can die, as much as it's like navigating what fears are alive for you to address, so you can keep showing up fully authentic, regardless of the narrative we're in, because that's how it changes, right? Like that's how we step into it. And that's what I had to navigate within me, uncovering the nature of all these experiences. And so where, you know, I've been in brawls with cops, and I've been shot at, and we've gone through, you know, and I've been through all these narratives. And I remember having this really dope conversation with one of my professors in school in New Mexico, when he was blown away by something we were talking about, and I was sharing some stuff, and he pulled me aside for class, and he was like, you know, I got to be honest. He said, one thing I love about being a professor is just you come across so many cultures and things in life, right? And he goes, and I got to be honest, like seeing you guys in my class, and I realized that if I were to see you on the street, I'd be afraid of you. Right? Like I crossed the street, and and it was like so dope that he was that honest. And he's like, but then I'm blown away when I connect with you. Right? And that stayed with me, because that was the thing that really landed in a way. It was like, yo, keep showing up with everything you have unapologetically, because that's the service. You know what I mean? And if we're looking at the way cultures have played out, and safety and significance is the model, then you look at the way that we play that out, because it's even taken away from race. If you just break down the simplest measure, someone who feels like they have to dominate another person to feel powerful or better about themselves does not feel powerful at all, right? At all. And when you think about the nature of how this country was built, think about that shit. Europeans, they feel powerful. That's why they fucking left Europe. And then they came over to America and they were like, what's this? I don't know, but I like it. Fuck them. You know what I mean? And they're like, and then they start playing that narrative out with Native Americans. And when they bring Africans over and slavery hits, it's like you're literally watching what happens when the perpetuation of misalignment is left unchecked, right? Because it's all definition. Like we can say that this is the constant narrative, or we could say this is the opportunity every day of our lives to be a guiding light for what's possible in the world, regardless of the circumstance. And when you see how it perpetuates, if you once had slavery and then slavery ends, but their consciousness didn't change, right? Just a piece of paper hit. So now they're like, but what does that mean if these people we once owned now get to be functional people? What does that say about me? Because I defined myself, my power, my fucking validation off of using them and running them. Now I got to actually sit across from them. What does that mean for me? Just like the narrative of men, right? In a journey where it's like, what do you mean I don't have to just be a provider anymore because women are also a provider? Or other, you know, like everyone's doing their thing. Now, what does that mean for me as a man? It's the same concept left unchecked. And now what's dope is we're all stepping into a greater space of awareness where it gets to get checked, where now it's like, actually, let me, by being just fully me, reveal some things to you. And everyone that's doing this work is doing that. It's individually and collectively. And to know that if you feel like you have to live in fear, that's your story. That's not white people's story. That's your story. Because you could easily understand that is like, there is a possibility of you experiencing violence, brutality, because you know there's misalignments there. But whether you choose to walk in fear of that is on you. And that's the journey we're all on as a culture. It's like, can we look at the nature of what we've experienced, created, and it's happened for generations and say, I am fully aware of the nature of this game. And what I choose to do as I grow my awareness, as I restore through my shadow, as I integrate, is continue to step forward to show people what's possible. And we do that all the time in these gatherings I have on a weekly with the Light Beings, this group that I started years ago, where every time at the end of our events, like we have such a multitude of cultures and beings. I literally hit it every time I go. I want you to, like, I live for this shit. I don't feel threatened by any of this stuff. I'm fucking amped. Like I'm amped when I see shadow come up individually and collectively. I'm like, this is why we're here. This is why we do this shit. Yes, more. You got some shit to say? Oh, we're blue lights. Let's go. It's like, this is what we're here for. So we feel that and we get to step into it. And what we're often showing people is like, you know, you got shit to deal with. We know that, like, none of this is a surprise. None of this is new by now to us, where some people are like, oh, I didn't know that was a thing. It's like, well, you just didn't want to because you were comfortable. And the idea of growing and getting to know more people was a thing. But that doesn't necessarily have to be a privilege thing. That's literally just neglect. Now, collective story-wise, right? It's like cultures have been in positions where they didn't have to, right? And that's fine if we are in positions where it's necessary because we chose to step into this framework of earth and play this game out, which means we who can shoulder that step in and go, no worries, we got this. Yep, if this is what we went through in every generation, if this is what we went through for the 1700s, 1800s, right, 1900s, and we're here now and we know the road that got here, we can either go, this is the same shit we keep going through, or we go, I don't give a fuck how long it takes. I'm here to see it change. And I'm all in. If I got to face my shit, process my emotions, address my stuff, have difficult conversations, this is what we're going to do. And this is what's dope, like what's happening here, where we get to honor that space and look at that space and know that we're not victims to any of it. To any of it. Even if you feel the physical pain that comes, you're not a victim to it. That is literally asking you, what do you do with this? Will you perpetuate it from limitation, or are you going to be the example of what's possible through it? And that's where we approach things from greater consciousness, where obviously we all know sustainability suggests you step forward from a greater capacity. Because if you keep it in the same space of consciousness, you perpetuate the narrative. We already know where that leads. You know what I mean? And so for me, it was always all I ever see now at this point in the work. And it took me a journey to get here, but being embodied in this way now, it's like, that's all I see. I witness where people feel safe and significant and where they don't. And the job is to bring that to awareness so they come online, because that literally is the thing that shifts it. when everybody starts realizing how safe and significant you are just within your own being, and you start to bring that energy to the table. Like, I've watched it transform thousands of people's lives in sustainable ways. So that's like, to me, that's the game. It's everyone's personal experience and collective experience is valid, because experience is experience. It's a real thing. It just, experience isn't an obstacle. It isn't against us. It's not an enemy. It is always a sacred opportunity. Sacred. It's a sacred offering of, here's the information of where you're at right now, based on who you're asking yourself to be. What do you do from here? And if we're living in that greater capacity of authenticity, then our only choice is growth and liberation. Then in this space, I choose to step more open-hearted, speak up, and authentic, and connect with others regardless. If you got shit coming up, we talk about it. You know what I mean? If we got to take a stand, we take a stand and break patterns. But then if we don't start thinking sustainably of, cool, so how do we build every day from here? How do we interact with each other on a daily? Do we let opportunities slip by and avoid and neglect really important moments of conversations that come to light right in front of your face? Or do you let it pass because you have an appointment you want to get to, and you're not being fully present with the world around you? You know, like it demands more responsibility, and that's a given, right? To be a leader, it demands more responsibility. And for us to show up in the way that we do, especially representing, you know, like minorities and Black culture and people of color, like whether it's fair or not is no longer the question. That doesn't matter anymore. The question is, are you going to take on the responsibility that you now have and be a leader in it or not? And if we neglect that, if we avoid that, we perpetuate this. Then when all the protests die down, if we're not stepping forward past the protests and go, let me continue to do it by my actions, by my living, by my connection, by my own healing, and then bringing more of the insight and awareness to the community. And then from the community, we build it and we get engaged with life, then it will perpetuate. And to me, that's what it's all about. For everything each one of us have experienced individually, that's your call to action. That's where we get to check in and go, are you really living authentic? Am I really living authentic? You know what I mean? And it really landed for me and my father. I'll end, you know, my expression with this. So my dad, when I was, this is maybe like mid-20s, as I was diving more into this, my experiences and slowly molding this work, I wanted to draw some things out of my dad, because he's very quiet a lot of times. Like he's open, he lets us know he loves us and very much dedicated to the family. But he always has these moments where you can see he hits his threshold and he just kind of fades and shuts off a little bit and just chills and does his own thing. And I was just having a conversation with him once, and I kept drawing stuff out, and he actually expressed his last memory of his father, because we were talking about the nature of fatherhood. And then he told me the whole journey of his mom's experience before he was born, and then he's the youngest of the children, and then her experience with him in Bowling Green, Kentucky. And so the last memory he had was he was 4 years old, and his dad in the neighborhood in Bowling Green would go like sail things around the neighborhood, and people knew him, knew each other. And this day, my dad wanted him to want to go with him. And he let my dad go with him, and they go walking down the neighborhood. And at that time, right, this is early 50s. If you're Black and you're walking on the sidewalk and white people are walking on the sidewalk, you step into the gutter, right? You get out of the way for white people, right? Which goes back to that significance thing. It's like, I don't want you to walk on the same path with me, because what does that mean for me? And I got to face my shit, right? So we know this narrative. And he refused to move because he wasn't going to make his son walk in the gutter. And so my dad said he just remembers certain phrases that stuck out, where it was like, oh, who does this uppity nigger think he is? And all this, like, this crowd starts to build up. And he said he just remembers these words saying, not in front of the boy, because they knew who he was. So they put my dad in the car and they drive him away, and he looks out the back window, and there's just a mob of white people around his dad. He never sees his dad again, right? At 4 years old. So now when he reveals that, you could see it, like, and suddenly all his patterns of behavior made sense too as a father. And for all the times he, like, you know, felt anger and kind of lashed out and stuff. And I was like, you didn't have to do that. And I didn't know how to process all that until I got older. But when he said that, it made a lot of things make sense. And then also what made the most sense is how he stepped so forward in his life to be a leader in so many ways, regardless of what people said and did. He never gave a shit. Like, he was like, I'm going to speak articulate. I'm not going to speak country. I want to speak. And even though people were like, oh, you want to talk white and stuff, though, he does so many for Black, you know, people for the Black community. He's like like that dude. And then when he said that, my mom never knew that. Like he never shared that. My mom didn't even know. And they were married at this point, like 27, 30 years when he just told me that. And when he revealed that, that was the thing I was realizing. It was like these narratives, right, that we're aware of, because that's not a rarity, right, in the 50s and the 60s and even, you know, certain places today. But it reveals that those are the things that show up for us to integrate so that we keep moving forward with it, no matter what. Like, it's not a cause to be like, let me just, you know, live in fear or perpetuate fear, or like teach my kids to write signs and protest and go, am I next? Like, so you can perpetuate more of that shit, as opposed to making your kid write a sign that says, I'm going to be a new example. You know what I mean? It's like that mentality that we have, that we're looking to build in, where it's like, even this doesn't stop me, ought to be the fucking mentality. You know what I mean? Like, even this won't stop me. And then the other part is being willing to share more, to be more in our vulnerable spaces, because suddenly that opened a space for my mom and him to connect in other ways, because my mom also went through her stuff growing up with her parents being abusive, all this stuff, right? So, and she's white. So you're navigating like these capacities and narratives where people can relate, but they don't talk enough. They don't speak up enough. They don't process their pain to sit down with each other and go, let me show you what life is like in my experience, and I'd like to hear yours. Because even if we disagree in certain spaces, I would like to know more about the human experience through every culture. And that kind of mentality brings us together in stronger capacities, I feel. And that's what we create a lot of spaces with the sacred sons, right? With the light beings. It's like, I'm adamant to tell people at the end of the night of our events, do you see the range of people here? Man, women, transgender, gay, straight, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, Middle Eastern. I said, this is literally a beacon of what's possible in this world. Like, we say that every night. This is what's possible. If this isn't your fucking standard, check yourself. You know what I mean? If you keep making it about us or them, you're literally in it. You're in the narrative and you're perpetuating it. And for all of us who are willing to have these combos, to me, this is what's asked of us. Be the voice that tells people there's something more for all of us. We have to own it. Everyone's got to own their shit. There's no way around it. Just like we got to own our shadows personally. Society's got to own it. Like, I get your fear of what does this mean if I actually acknowledge the fact that we've done this to Native Americans and black people and women and this, what does that mean? It's like, cool, whatever you feel right now, feel that for a minute. I'm here with you, all right? But feel that shit. Acknowledge it so we can actually move the fuck forward. But we got to be willing to have those combos in a way that is the chosen standard, that this is how it's going to be from now on. If that doesn't become our standard, that we take our pain and integrate it, and we speak up to a world we see, not what we don't want, that creates the standard. And everything I've ever seen with the work I've done, that's how it becomes sustainable. Like, it's literally the answer. We want sustainability, talk more, be more vulnerable, face your shit, and go forward into everything, not backward or shut off. You know, as difficult as it may be in our times, because that doesn't matter either, right? When you're committed, it doesn't matter, hard or easy, just get it done. And that, for me, that's just what's alive in these spaces. Like, I'm at that point now where I feel emotions and I acknowledge when things are distorted as fuck, like brutality, but I still see purpose in it. I don't get stuck in the tragedy anymore. I've worked through that. You know what I mean? So I just want to share that in the space, you know, from the Heart Brothers.
Reach, Kev.
Thank you, bro.
Beautiful, Kev. What's up, my brothers? My name is Brendan Darrell Davis. I am from Jersey as well. Mom's lives in New York. Pops now lives in North Carolina. Just hearing all you speak, and Adam and Kev as well, with I believe in justice and oneness as well. This is what I spoke on the Sacred Sons call. I have an innate non-dual heart. My heart's always leaked oneness and unity since I was a kid. Even my dad makes comments on that even now. And I'm also a big fan of that. The universe makes no mistakes. Nature makes no mistakes. And there's a reason why we have a black suit in this life for this time. So we have to honor that deeply, no matter how much we see and feel with the unity consciousness. We have to still play our part. As Kevin was saying with that narrative, I am a black man too. I can't bypass that shit. And this is where I was getting triggered with a lot of the spiritual community. I think, I don't know if it was you, Ezra, or Samson, you mentioned about the spiritual community. I've always been one-on-one and one of two in the space. And I'm finding a lot of these spiritual communities, they're not about it like I thought they were. Like they want to go with the loving uncle away on vacation, forgetting that the other uncle that's hate is part of the same family. They're not seeing that. And Nikhil, you were asking, how can you be an ally? For me, like, I feel you're deep in the spiritual community. For me, it's less is more for the spiritual community. It's not, to me, it's not spiritual bypassing. It's just straight out bypassing with a lot of people. There's nothing spiritual about bypassing. Spiritual work to me is going through the darkness and the light at the same time. And also, Nikhil, was something you said, and this is for you, because I lived in Australia for over a year. I lived in WA, where Steph's from. And a big thing that I found, it's, let's say when a lot of people have this languaging of like, just work on your shit. You come to the hood and say that to somebody, you're going to get punched in the face. You can't come and say, just work on your shit. So I'm about tangible action going forward, especially with the spiritual communities. And we're all here in some form working catharsis, working somatic kind of nature. When somebody's in catharsis, we're not just going to hand them a cupcake. We're not going to hand them a cookie and be like, hey, stop crying, stop yelling here. I don't do that. We're going to let the pain body act out, and we're just going to hold serve. So I come from a background in professional sports as well. And I remember my hitting coach, he would always say, when I was struggling, he would say, less is more, Bam. Less is more. Because when I was slumping, when I couldn't buy a hit for a nickel, like I was trying to do everything to get a hit. And he's just like, just stop caring, you know, just do less. Just do less. Make it simple. Make it digestible for your body to understand that you need to hit the ball this way, not that way. And then when I would do less, I would hit missiles out of the ballpark. And I feel it's the same right now with the Black community. And Adam, you touched on this. Like, we're not just seeing an individual pain body, we're seeing 450 years. And for me, in my experience, generations, like way beyond that. There was a man who he was considered Rome's biggest threat. Rome was scared of this man. His name was Hannibal Barca. This man literally brought Rome to his knees. If he had the actual men and numbers, he would have beat the hell out of Rome, the great Roman Empire. Hannibal Barca was also a Black man. History depicted him as a white man. So I say all this to say is that Hannibal Barca that's within us, we're living in a version of Rome. We're living in it right now. And it's going to take all of us to own every single aspect that we are, our higher self, lower self, every motherfucking part of ourself we have to own. So I'm all about love and light. Like I said, my heart is so non-dualistic. But however, in these times, you have to say, I am a proud Black man. That's just my opinion. We have to say this. I'm a proud Black man. I don't give a shit if you liked Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh growing up, you ran through the hallways with your hands behind your back and shit like that. It doesn't matter. One of you guys said, like, we're all different shades of being Black man. This is the new narrative. Because I also know the challenges. My mom still lives in the projects in New York right now. And dudes who live in a building there, they respect me. But also, I know that I can't talk to them yet in this way because there's a level of trust that they have to get past. So a lot of the stuff that we're looking to do, that we're doing, let's say there's a scale. Let's say the scale is 20. And let's say in this work, we're at like a 9. Most of the Black men, I feel collectively, are probably between a 1 and 3. And getting to a 3 is probably from woke rap music, probably from Wu-Tang, you know, things like of that nature that taught them history that way. immortal technique, whatever it is. So we have to be very digestible in going forward, not shrinking ourselves, but just digestible in how we're representing who we are to people. And as you said, owning all of it. Lastly, my experience of being Black man, like you see my name on the screen here, Brendan Durrell. My pops, he gave me the name. One of the reasons why he gave me the name Brendan was so I wouldn't be discriminated against in an application process. He wanted to assure that I can make it to the actual physical interview. It doesn't matter now because I'm an entrepreneur and I'm doing my thing this way, but my dad had to do that. He couldn't give me a name that was like stereotypical Black because he wanted me to win. So I think it was you, Charles, talking about chances, or one of you brothers said it. It's like my dad had to think about these things in order to not even give me an opportunity. That's all. There's a big distinction between chances and opportunity. Chances, we got to take that shit. Opportunity is like almost given. It's a privilege thing. Here's your opportunity. Here it is, your opportunity. For us, it's like, oh, that's my chance. I got to take that shit. And that's where we've been. So Brendan comes from, it's an Irish name, it's a Celtic name. But my pops was like, I'm gonna give my son the best chance possible to get into get in that room so they can see his smile, they can feel his heart. They can see how intellectual he is. Charles, you can correct me on this, but I believe Jim Crow was officially taken away in 1964 by President Johnson. And that's about what, only 56 years ago, I think?
65.
65. So that's what, 50, 55 years ago?
Years, yeah.
And we all see how fast 1 year goes by right now in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
55 years ago. Like that. We were just there. So what I was experiencing when all this began, I went through the whole spectrum of emotions, crying, anger, fuck yous, and I love yous. And I let myself experience everything. And I was also by myself in Guatemala. I just got to Mexico right now. I was by myself there. When this all happened, just like you brothers, I got over 100 messages from white people. I see you, I love you. I just want you to know I care about you and you're seen. Get the fuck out of my face. I'm not a victim. And one thing out of that experience that I really wept and I was crying because I was like, God damn, out of 100 messages, not one Black person reached out to me to see how I was doing. And I was talking to my homie about it. And I said, why do you think that is? Like, it really hurts me. Like, I just want to be hugged by a Black man. I want to be hugged by a Black woman. Like, honestly, I don't want to be around white people. And I was like, why do you think nobody's, like, we're not messing each other with this shit? And I was like, maybe it's because we're desensitized to it a bit. Because it's like same shit, different toilet. The only reason why there's an uproar, and there's been an uproar, is because white people are seeing it more now. So the only thing is an uproar. That's why. But for me, it was same shit, different toilet. So yeah, that's been where I'm at. And but I'm all about actionable steps, and I love the talk about the narratives and how we're gonna just own everything that we are. And also for you brothers too, this is from my experience. Don't shrink who you are. Let's say even if you go in the hood, because it's one thing to own all you are in front of a white person, but can you own all you are in front of a dude who's a thug as well? Can you do the same shit? Because that's gonna bring us through transformation. Can you own all of you in front of the thug as well? The former thug, the OG. Can you do that? Because that's our work as well, going forward. Stefanos, I just want to also thank you because for me, you started this process of all of this at Convergence 2. When you and I were laying upstairs in that cattle farm that Adam had us laying in with those cots upstairs. We and you were like laying like teenager girls on our bellies with our feet in the air like this, just talking, eating snacks. And we were talking about, you shared what you shared about your father being extremely racist. And you started crying right in front of me. And I got emotional too, because I was like, damn, this dude's really feeling. I was like, how come he's emotional about his dad being racist, but I'm not emotional witnessing him being, because I was desensitized. But I will never forget that moment, because I was just meeting you. And I was like, the courage of this man to cry in front of a black man right now, owning that his dad was a racist. You were doing this shit that we're talking about now way before this trend started. And I say trend because there's a lot of people falling off the wagon right now with it. So thank you, Steph, for being in that position, because I'll never forget that moment. I will tell my kids and my grandkids about that there was this Greek Australian white dude who owned all of this shit before 2020. And he got the ball rolling energetically. Because that's what you did, man. You didn't have to do that. You didn't have to do that. And now I look back, I'm like, wow. Wow. So yeah, man, I love you and I thank you for that, because that was brave. That was so brave. And all in all, I love you, man. And don't just show up in yin, show up in yang, and show up in both of them fully, because love and hate's the same family. And we have to be the example that we have to be that example, that we can ride with both. And as Ezra said, like, ride and live. We can ride and live with both, because this is the spiritual journey. It's not just one side, it's both sides. Love you, man.
I love that, man. Quick question for you, brother. That as you were speaking, something came alive. Why do you feel like, do you think that it was always there and it just got louder within this experience? Or why do you feel like in the moment when things got heightened, that you really felt at that moment that you just wanted to be held by like a black man or a black woman? Was it something that's been there, but it wasn't as loud in this moment? Or what was that? What do you think that was for you?
For me, it was just, it was an understanding, because I was feeling everything from what was happening. And I was, because of the color of my skin, put in a position to feel I have to answer these questions to all these white people and asking me questions. So I was like, I just want to be held by a black man. Like, we ain't even got to say shit, but I know that he understands. I know that she understands. So that's where I was coming from. I was like, I didn't want to talk. I just want to be held.
Yeah, it's interesting you said, because I started feeling that when the pandemic hit, because the demographics were there before. I mean, you know, I was seeing what was happening as far as the demographics and the community, lower socioeconomic people of color. And I reached out to the 3 guys I mentioned before that I started a little text, you know, ring where I'm like, you know, make sure you wash your hands, wear your gloves. You know, I mean, it was just like things like, man, you know, we got to get this word out, you know, and it was that reaching out, what you're saying. It was that hug, man. I need you, brothers. You know, I need you guys, you know, and I think the pandemic has led our country to the point where we are more raw and more sensitive to what we're seeing now, because it's created a more level playing field. You know, I mean, you can't hide from nature. You know, privilege does nothing against, you know, disease and dis-ease. Privilege does nothing for that. So that started leveling that playing field, and everybody's looking, you know, with the amount of unemployment. Well, why can so many people march right now? What else do they have to do? Sit in the house and watch it on TV? Yeah. You know, I mean, it's like, okay, let's go. Excuse me. So it's really has leveled the playing field where you realize it doesn't matter black, white, but this is an injustice that, you know something, this may come to me. This may happen in my neighborhood. These things are happening to me. The privilege is not saving me. And so I just think, you know, I agree with you. Reaching out, man, you just feel that. You know, I've reached out to blacks and whites that I've been through some shit with, you know, in my life right now, because we know what we've been through. We know what that bond is, you know, and just like you guys, when he said, I didn't even finish reading the sentence. Yes, of course, you know, and that's what it's going to take to get us through this. But, you know, it's the conviction of, and I'm not one for making resolutions, but this year, my whole thing has been diligence. from day one, it's diligence. I'm not letting up on anything. And this happens. Pandemic. This, you know, people becoming woke on all this stuff that's happening, you know, but it's like, it's a level playing field. And by leveling the playing field, it's actually heightening who we are, because we've been through so much stuff that the desensitization is getting to the point where we realize that we're prepared for this. We're prepared for this. And now it's just a matter of keeping it going. It's not a weekend thing. It's not a month thing. This is for the rest of your life thing. This is the opportunity that we have to do this and be committed to it. I mean, we're on this call because of that.
I love that.
Yeah, I agree with you, Charles. There's one piece though I just want to acknowledge about the level playing field with illness, is that still in Black communities, hospitals are not, you know what I'm saying? Hospitals are not at the same level. There are certain things at play in terms of illness and disease, including nutrition, quality of food, having like a farmer's market versus a liquor store in the neighborhood. These type of things do contribute to an uneven playing field when it comes to disease. And so I understand your point, and there's still work to do on the ground.
Right. And to your point, you know, there's so much more of what I do. A matter of fact, I met Stephanos, I actually met him in a market where we were shopping for some nutritional food for that retreat, you know. So I agree with you. It's about making people aware of the fact, you know, we're, you know, pushing to have a community garden, to have those things where, you know, you're right. It's not a level playing field from the standpoint of the resources that we have to take care of this issue, but it's a level playing field for the opportunity of you being taken down by it. And from the standpoint that you think your health is good, you think your privilege is going to keep you away. No, it's going to knock on your door, your neighborhood as well.
Correct.
Aho, brothers. You know what? I've just been thinking about something, if I might. Am I heard? Is my mic on?
Yep.
Yeah. You know, when I went out to Bali, Steph, you remember we met in Canggu. You introduced me to Nikhil. I had decided, you know, before I came out to Australia, which I was scared to do, to be honest with you, you know, because I was reading about what was going on with the indigenous people. I dealt with some shit at the airport, and then you come to scoop me up, and you welcome me to your house, and you show me the Frio, you introduce me to your friends, you know, and it's like, I just want to honor your heart and ways that you have no idea that your kindness and the sensitivity that you show introducing me to your family and just being who you are has been a positive effect to me. I just want to thank you. I also want to point to the fact that for us as a group, those of us who've had the interesting opportunity to navigate these so-called spiritual groups and see what we see. And, you know, like, what's cool is we get to take what we've learned on this journey and we get to transmute that. We get to take that and bring that to our brothers and sisters who may be at that level from 1 to 3 consciousness, and do the same thing that KRS-One did back in the day, Leaders of the New School, or Brand Nubian, or like all these other, you know. So if you're from the 90s, if you're not from the 90s and we're listening to the stuff that's going on now, we can take even what's being talked about now. We can take what's going on the TV and break down the esoterics. And like, now's the time that we get to level up and be a part of that in a way that we can speak to, you know, someone who's been in a hood situation because we've been there with them and we've gone and seen something different. And now we can take it back. We can speak to where I'm currently. If I go back to Hawaii, my home spot would be in Waianae. I get to go chill in Waianae on the west side and just sit at the bus stop, which I'm not going to do that because I'm going to come to Maui now. But like, you know, to sit and to chop it up with people who look like us, who have never heard of what we've got to experience one way or the other, and blow their minds with these things. And they'll listen because we're different from what they've seen, what they feel is going to disrespect them and not want to see them and not want to hear from them. And now we can bring other people who have true hearts, like Steph, who want to know, who reached out to us and not just said, I see you, but who've asked the question, like Steph asked me, and he always asked me, brother, how's your heart? Mm-hmm. That means something very different to me when someone asks, how's my heart? So I'm really grateful for this opportunity and this chance and for whatever's going on now. And my intention is to reach for those people who are reaching for me, and then also reach for those people who don't know how to reach, who are connected to me, who look like me, and who don't look like me, but who are me as I see them. And, you know, be a catalyst for their expansion, for whatever special skill set you have, whether it's artistry and all of its facets, whatever it is, energy work. Like, you know, I just got into this Healy thing, and I'm thinking my intention was to get it and treat the people in the household that I'm living in with, you know, biofrequency, biofield tuning. And then I'm all in the back of my head, I'm thinking, all right, how am I going to bring this to my cousins and my sisters and my brothers? You know, like that's like in my head. Every time I get something and do something new, there's always a part of me that's like, man, I got to get this to them. How am I going to do this? You know? And so I think now is a great opportunity to find out how to bring it to them and make it palpable, you know? So I just wanted to share that. And also because I know this is the forum for that, you know, and there are so many different ways to speak to and articulate what we've experienced. And I just think it's great that I think it's great that I've got to have the shit show of a journey in the good ways and the bad ways that it's been, and to get to still connect with people of various generations, you know, getting to go back to Africa and connect with my roots there, getting to sit in the medicine and the meditation and see what I am beyond this frame as well, getting to heal lineal trauma, not just for myself as a man, but for the women in my family, because none of the other family wanted to go do it and get to their roots, and bring that back and hold intimacy sessions with my female cousins, the new matriarchs of my family, and step into that healing and introduce them and talk to them about their womb. They don't even have any concept of speaking to that word. We get to bring so much from everything that we've experienced into this field, and we also get to receive. And I just like, I don't want to allow myself to forget for everything that we've been through and not be diligent. Diligence means so much to me right now, Charles. Thank you for reminding me. Aho, brothers.
Oh.
Aloha. Really.
Brothers, I'm sitting in deep humility at the moment, listening to this conversation and really feeling, not just listening, but feeling this conversation. And of course, wanting to be very respectful of your time and space as a solid masculine men. And we have a few minutes left, and I have honestly so many questions that I know, Kevin, we have the answers to. The questions, if we're asking the questions, we have the answers. I know that. And I know that because I ask these questions in my head and I just answer. I think this is what Kevin will probably say and this is what I'm going to say. And he's probably going to agree with that. And Bab's definitely going to say something like this. And I'm going everywhere with it. But this is, you know, one of the questions that I've got, and I've written a few here, is I look around and this conversation of shadow and fear, I fucking love it. I thrive in it. I thrive in the light. I thrive in the dark. And so many people on this earth plane are very scared, very fearful of the dark, very fearful of their own shadow. They're very fearful of the unknown and the uncertainty. There's so much fear there for them. And the entrenched powers that are playing out on a physical level on this earth plane, there are a few that can see beyond that or through that. And I know this is a very fucking loaded question, a big question. How do we assist people? And of course, it's be the change you want to see. I get all that. I look at the world and I consider myself a realist and an optimist. So I'm fucked either way. I don't know. I'm in a bad position. I look at the world and I think the masses are so scared of change. Are they going to really want to give up their perceived power or actual power? How do we do that? How do we impact and influence that? Where we can diffuse them and say, hey, it's okay for someone else that is different to you that also have power. You don't have to lose all your power, your sovereignty, your sense of self. You can evolve, enhance, expand. People are so fucking entrenched, and that fear drives them to push away and repel and be violent because they're so scared.
As we keep
That's what you said.
as we keep nudging this in the right direction, what always works is letting them think it's their idea. Just let them think that, you know, it's like, yup, that's a great idea. Let's do that.
Good old ego.
You know, and just, hey, I'm on board, you know?
One thing I would say to that, well, a couple of things in that is, you know, it's looking at what our standards are and what the priority is, right? So like one of the things I teach in our practice is authentic communication. And authentic communication is the ability to really say what's actually in there and bring it forth. And when that becomes the intention of what you're after, all the rest of the stuff can be shifted through, right? So like I'm grateful that I've been able to go in all kinds of different spaces, right? Whether it's the hood or a board meeting or whatever, and relate to everyone and have a conversation and draw things from people, because like you were saying, Bam, it's like the ability to be your authentic full expression is you can show up any space and connect. And for me, it was always about that. It was like, I'm going to show up in your space and honor your space and offer who I am and what I have in the dynamic that relates to where you are. And when that's your intention, there's literally not a human being you are incapable of connecting to, no matter how long the conversation takes. And we're obviously in this for the long haul, where it's literally step by step. And I'm saying, like, I've had dudes in the midst of like about to go on some straight killing shit or suicide shit, or like, and actually be able to reach them in the moment. And like I have a few of my buddies from that used to stay in Overtown, and I used to stay there when I first moved out here a little bit. It was like the first thing for me to connect with them was just to show them that they were more than their block. And that's all I wanted to show them. And they were able to start feeling where their insecurities were, where they started like living a certain lifestyle because they thought they had to be able to maintain where they were. And then and then being able to relate to that space and guide them through it. It was like those soft spots. And one thing that still stands out to this day, well, two, but the one that I'll sing to in this space of what you're talking about, I remember one time I was on this bus and this dude that was like super swastika up, right? White dude step on, like fucking niggas coming in here doing this, like he's going like this, doing all these things, which I'm grateful for. Like, so I see him and I'm just sitting listening to him, and all I see is an aspect of me, right? And so I just start, instead of going into the, I just looked at him and I just started asking questions, right? Like, and like, I don't remember who said, which one of you guys said this, but you said it beautifully. It's like, I think Charles, you said it when, because I speak to this constantly. When you function in a space of more aligned state, you need nothing. You need nothing. Right? You just show up in full capacity. So people who are used to either wanting to fight and not getting the feedback, or people wanting to manipulate situations or offer you stuff and you don't give feedback, no one knows what to do with that. Like they don't know how to handle that because everyone's used to functioning from the space they're in. And so this dude was like, and I've literally shifted so many narratives from the space. When you don't get caught up in it, you literally just navigate because your desire to connect with them is more important than being hard or tough or proving a point or wanting to be seen a certain way. So when this dude was doing that, it was like, you know, a couple of years ago, we would have been going at it. This year was like, I wasn't interested in that. So I'm connected, I'm asking questions, and all of a sudden you see him, like his brain starts going, I don't know how to compute this. And so that starts to scramble and he starts to fade. Once he fades, now we're having a full-fledged conversation, and we uncover that the girl that he considered the love of his life left him for a black athlete in the coldest, well, narrative terms, coldest way. And he internalized that, right? And he also had a shitty relationship with his father. So there was a missing of belonging in that space too. And then when he's at his lowest, like he just lost his job, and then he like comes home to his apartment and this Mexican dude's breaking in his car and he goes to stop him, and a couple of his homies comes out and he gets his ass kicked by a bunch of Mexicans. It was like just stacking. And for him, it's just like this shitty fucking world where my dad is a piece of shit and this fucking black athlete dude and this fucking Mexicans and all these things. And he just has his hate where nowhere to direct it. And then he comes upon this group who hates people like he hates people. And all of a sudden there's a space where it's like, oh, I belong somewhere, right? Like you connect with me, and now he feels like he belongs. And so now he has a space, and then living that life, now he shows up with me and I don't feed into any of his stuff, and I actually just see him. And now all of a sudden this new narrative is opening his mind where he's like, wait, you're not angry with the way I'm acting towards you, and you're actually like listening to me, you're asking me questions about me, and like by the end, he's bawling and we're hugging like brothers, right? Now, for the amount of time it took to have that conversation, that just reveals the truth of what's happening beyond everyone's narrative, beyond all the privileges and fears and the Karens and the Kyles and people like, they are doing this. It's like when you feed into it back and forth because you still think it's something showing up as against you, you play out the narrative. But when you take the time to hear what people are saying beyond their words, beyond their actions, and that becomes your focus, you create a different energy that opens a different space. And every single space of life I have been to in every culture, whether it's a prominent space or a ghetto space or thugged out gangster shit or fucking like straight edge shit, once you take time to listen, you connect with them. That's all it takes. And imagine if enough of us did that on a regular basis, you not only shift their narrative around the idea of people, you start showing them they're actually safe enough to feel their emotions without reacting to it. And that creates different spaces. And for my journey, that changed the narrative between getting into it with cops for a dominant portion of my life to now having cops that are friends, and also then seeing between both. You know what I mean? Where it's no longer a generalization. It's like you just connect to people. And now I'm watching cops who used to let other cops slide, but because we have conversations, they check the shit out of that stuff. Now, like Hollywood cops, like it's like out here, it's so dope. And to me, that's what it takes. I just want to connect. Let's see what unfolds from that. You know what I mean? And that changed everything in my world. And people shifted in ways that I didn't think was possible before this. You know what I mean? And maybe not be at peace with things I never thought I'd ever be at peace with. And I feel like that's huge when it comes to facing fears. It's like connecting people where they are and making connection more important than teaching them a lesson. You know what I mean?
For me, that's the new battlefield. That's the courage right there.
Legit.
Yeah.
I love everything that you just spoke to, brother.
Appreciate that, brother.
My heart is just like, open. I felt it. I was like, what's this? MDMA? Verbally? Thanks, man.
Yo, so Kev, that is exactly what it takes on the individual interpersonal level. Yep. But here's what I'm going to answer Steph's question in a different way. There's no incentive for white people to give up their power and privilege. Mm-hmm. There's no incentive. Okay, so what we have
not unless they've done the deeper work, right?
Yeah, but they haven't.
That's
they
right.
haven't.
That's right. That's right. That's true. The masses haven't.
I'm going to say three things these are very high level, and it may be a bit idealistic, but this is what I actually believe that it takes. One, we have to redefine our relationship to the earth, to the mother that we walk upon. That goes for governments, that goes for individuals, that goes for all people on this planet. Until we get right with Mother Nature, we won't be right with each other. It's just the truth. And in agriculture and the Industrial Revolution and everything that's happened has got us misaligned on a grand scale with how we walk upon this earth. That's number one. Number two, we have to redefine our relationship and our idea of what abundance is, because monetary wealth is not true abundance.
Correct.
Abundance is growing your food. It's living in community. It's living not only sustainably, but regeneratively. Mm-hmm. So on a grand scale, we have to redefine what abundance is. What does it look like? Because I know what it doesn't look like. It doesn't look like hoarding and keeping everything for one person or for one group of people. It looks like having abundance for all. It looks a bit like, it looks like having enough and sharing with those who don't. That's the truth. That's the truth. That's how nature works. That's how all animal systems work. That's how all I'm lost for words, but this is how human beings are designed. We're social creatures. We're designed to look after each other. You know what I'm saying? Look after one another. And then, like, in order to get to that redefinition of abundance and to reframe how we treat the mother, we as men specifically have to ensure that our women and our children are safe. This is so these are my 3 steps. So until we can ensure that women can be safe on this planet from men, and that children can be safe on this planet from men, we'll never get out of this. It doesn't matter how much work, how much spiritual work you do, how many straight edge or Nazis we talk to, until women and children feel safe. Like, I think that's the root. And because we said racism isn't I forget who said it earlier, but it's
Kev.
Yeah, it's not a cause, it's a side effect.
Yeah, it's
a side effect.
It's a product.
It's a side effect of all of these things that I'm speaking to.
Yeah.
And so those are big things in white folks. And I want to say one thing about white. This idea of white people is an American thing that happened in the 1800s with Ellis Island. And as they shipped people in, Jews were not considered white. Italians were not considered white. The Irish are the last of the white-skinned individuals who are considered now white in America. But that wasn't always the case. Europeans have been fighting each other for a very long time, not because of the color of skin, but because of their culture. And America has largely asked those individuals to remove their culture and to step into whiteness. And so for white people, I would implore a lot of white people to go back to their ancestral roots, to do that type of healing so that they know where they come from, so that they don't identify with an idea of white supremacy or, hey, I'm like Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg or Donald Trump. You aren't any of those motherfuckers. Like, you take a look at who you really are and where you come from. And so with that, I just want to say, we can't incentivize people to give up power until we change their idea of what power is, of what greatness truly is. And so this is a much bigger conversation, and I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I'm here for it all the way.
I'm here with you, brother. And
I want to say something.
I just want to say one thing that to Adam is there's one thing I would say that have to start before that, because it's all like, you know, we talk about often how all relationships outside of us are a reflection of relationship with ourselves, right? Like, so we play out our relationship with the earth based on our relationship with ourselves. Like, the more distant we are internally, then we play that out with women, kids, the earth, and that's how it would have to start is the ways we get people looking in themselves is the key. Like, you know, because if someone's like in a space where they feel like they got to make money at all costs and do these things, even in regards to the earth, you won't appeal to the sacredness of the earth to them if they already don't teach it. You have to get them back to the sacredness of themselves to say, why do you think that that's how you define success and these things like you were just talking about? And that relationship with ourselves literally perpetuates the society and our dynamic with the earth. And I feel like what we do, like all of us, the willingness to do our own work and the willingness to get people to look at themselves, because that's really why, like, Industrial Revolution kicked off, people stopped looking at themselves and they're just like, I gotta, and if we can get that space, even for like 10 minutes, to just sit down and be like, oh, what's inside of it? Like, what's these feelings? What is this shit that's feeling up? And that kickstarts all of a sudden relating to the earth differently. All of a sudden realizing the standards we could set with men and women. Because I remember just one example of this, and then I'll hold it off so someone else can share. I remember, you know, the difference between me, where there was a time where my standards weren't as clear to me. Right. And me and my homies, when it came around girls who were disrespectful, we weren't always in the space. And even though underneath that, there was this Kevin that all he wanted to do was love and appreciate women and but didn't know how to navigate his own fears of intimacy and vulnerability. And so I didn't play that. And then when I shifted that, and then my boys would act up around women, I'd check the shit out of them. But that came from me taking time with myself to actually realize where I wasn't living up to this idea that I either thought or wanted to. That changed everything. And I feel like that in that interpersonal space first, because that's all society is, right? Is relationship between people. And that's all reflective of that self thing. I feel like that kickstarts those three things, because it would be like a natural side effect, the same way, you know what I mean? So I just want to share that in that response to that.
Yeah, it goes around. It keeps going around in a big circle.
I appreciate what you said. That actually answered what I was thinking of. So Adam, you know, in 2014, I left Cali. I went from Japan for work to San Diego. And when I was in San Diego, after I started looking into everything, I decided to go off grid. So I bought an RV, you know, whip, I packed everything, moved to Big Island. I left Oahu and moved to Pahoa and had that experience, which was reconnecting to the earth, redefining, you know, abundance, which for me now became 2 different types of avocado and pineapple and, you know, ulu plants, and like having stuff that I'm like, I can live off this. I can eat a noni just by itself and be happy and call it for the day, and coconuts. And then I'm thinking, while I'm there, while I'm working on the land myself, not everyone's going to be able to do this. You know, like it was a profound change for me, getting to stand up for my woman, bartering in the neighborhood. You know, I've got some extra produce, some extra calamansi oranges or limes or whatever, and I bring them across the street. And then she gives me, you know, avocados or whatever, mangoes. And I'm like, man, this is a very unique experience. And so how am I going to go back to the States and cultivate something like that aside from having a place where people could come visit? So I guess the answer that I'm receiving in this moment as well is to be able to help people to cultivate that inner space within themselves. And maybe that opens it up for them to experience the other side of things, right where they're at. So thank you both, brothers. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Brothers, I want to be, I honestly, I have more questions for us, for the greater collective. And I'm also very, very respectful, want to be respectful and mindful of our time as a group here. So I want to wrap this up and of course leave on, if anyone has anything that's burning within them they want to share. I am grateful to you all. For me, the connection here has deepened. Every time I see you, talk to you, message you, Brendan and I had a fucking very, very masculine, sensual connection. Like, bam, he messaged me, I'm thinking of you, bam. Anyway, every time I connect with any of you, you know, that deepens for me. And so I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful to have men like you, because there's a, you know, Adam touched on this a moment ago. There's this interweaving element here. There's a reason why I brought brothers. I asked brothers to be here, just men, because I feel there is a deep responsibility as men on this earth today, in this day and age, to create a wave of transformation, transmutation, realization like we've never seen before. And that's not to say that women don't have a role. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's a little different to ours. And then we have a unified role as well. And this narrative here between men, it's connecting with other men as well. And so that's why and something that Adam said earlier around men being present to themselves, to women, to children, to earth. Men are not victims. Men have forgotten who they've been. Men have forgotten their power. And they've stepped into force because of fear. And that whole rhetoric needs to change. And I know that as I walk through this world, and I'll try not to cry for the fucking 18th time on this call, as I walk through this world, knowing I have men like you, that I can pick up the phone, because I know there's a lot of brothers that don't have that feel very alone and very isolated. I can pick up the phone, I say, hey, I need you. I mean, I fucking really need you. And I'm blessed that I have brothers like that in my life I can do that with. I really need you. And to know with every iota of my being that you'll be there, this is what's going to create change, is away from that isolation and separation. And I'm so thankful and grateful and humbled to have you brothers in my life in any and every capacity that you are. And I'm fucking, as I'm feeling all the feelings in this time that we're in the world, I'm also very hopeful and I'm very fucking excited. I cannot wait to be in the physical with you all at some point in the very near future. And so I'm going to wrap up there from me. And if anyone has anything else they want to share, please feel free.
I love you all. I got to bounce. I got a 4-month-old crying in the next room.
Yeah. Hey, I just want you to find a way to keep us connected. This has to be the beginning of something. Yeah. I mean, this has to be the beginning of a perpetuation of something, of that abundance you talk about.
Yeah, I'm down to do a series.
Yeah, I'll be very happy to do a series if all of you are willing to do that. And
yes,
I'll put it together and organize, and we'll talk to that. We'll talk to that separately. Absolutely, man. I mean, people are going to experience this, and I know they're going to fucking be vibrating in their being massively.
Yeah, Steph, and come in with some of those questions you got and prompt us in the beginning.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, I really do some, and I knew that the questions would come from witnessing you express in your fullness here and now. And so, and from that, I've got a fucking lot more. So I'd love to put a series together if you're all willing to.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Fuck yeah.
Speaking to that, brother, like there's so much like multifacetedness in this collective here. How we're all coming in and weaving in real time. It's just fucking endless potential about how this message. It feels new, yet like this ancient council, and it's just phenomenal, brother. So we can jam on that as well.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm very, very excited.
Yeah.
You guys are also all invited to Convergence 4. It is happening back in Liberty Arising. I'm going to tell you guys first, October 1st through 4th is when the Convergence is going to be. So everyone here is invited.
I'm there, brother. I'm putting it in my calendar. I say diary. I'm putting it in my calendar diary now.
Because that's where real healing happens as well, as you brothers know who've been.
Yeah. I'm going to get you there, Charles.
All right. I got to go before I get in trouble.
Yeah.
Much love. I love you guys. Peace.
Love you, brother. Peace.
Look forward to meeting you, brothers. Aloha.
Yeah.
Love you, brothers.
Love you, brothers. Thank you. Thank you.